Yo, chat, we are here. All right, hey guys, what is up? I'm Ty, and welcome to my video. So, I stayed in Europe from July 1st all the way to October 17th. So that was 3 months and I believe, 3 months and 17 days. I rounded up for the title, so soz, but that was also 15.4 weeks or 108 days. So, I'm gonna tell you everything, how much I spent, what was the most expensive expense, most expensive city, cheapest city, etc., everything. But to do that, you guys need context, which is where did I go? So I went to more cities than countries, but I stayed in 3 countries and 10 cities. So Spain, France, and Romania. And in Spain, out of 107 nights, I stayed 66 nights in Spain visiting these 7 cities. And then in France, I stayed 21 nights visiting these 2 cities. And then in Romania, I spent 21 nights as well visiting Bucharest for 3 weeks. So yeah, that brings us to this question. So how much did I spend in total for everything? Everything. I calculated, I did all the numbers, I double checked it. I really went through this thoroughly, so trust me. I spent $15,105.91. That is so cheap. And also that came down to $979 every single week for everything. That is like so good. The way I did it, I was pretty much being frugal, and also, I'll tell you, don't worry. So accommodation was my most expensive expense. This accounted for 40% of my total accommodation. So I stayed 107 nights and I stayed in 18 hostels for 104 nights and 1 hotel for 3 nights. So I feel like staying in hostels for that long, after a while, you kind of lose your mind a little bit. Like just the constant getting woken up in the middle of the night because people are on their own schedule, young people coming in at the middle of the night. I mean, I love hostels. I had a great time. But I feel like just the fact that you're meeting so many different strangers every single day, like that constant socialization 24/7 kind of gets to you. And you kind of meet most people are really, really cool, but I guess there are a few kind of characters. So, which is why I'm so lucky I'm a guy traveling, so yeah. So, what was my most expensive hostel I stayed in? Mallorca. I stayed in one hostel called the Bock Hostel for 2 weeks from July 22nd to August 5th. And I spent $1,382.20. So that was $98.73. This was the most bougiest hostel I ever stayed in. Oh my God, had its own pool as well, like a fancy pool. Like a pool that I'd expect from like a 4-star hotel or 5-star hotel. And then the second most expensive hostel, I gotta tell you guys this one, hostel in Nice. I stayed there for 2 weeks as well, from August 12th to August 26th, and it cost me $1,145.62, or that's $81.83 a night. So all these hostel dorms, I'm sharing a room with 6 or 8 people. But my God, this hostel, this was the worst. This is probably the worst hostel I stayed in. I'm sorry to say that, because the owner is a legend. He was in the army and he knew I wanted to go train jiu-jitsu, and he had a jiu-jitsu owner's number on his phone and he called the guy up for me. So he's a legend, he's a top bloke, funny guy. But that hostel was just so gross, man. Oh my God, I don't even want to talk about it too much, but I'll just tell you one thing. Like the toilet wasn't really working sometimes. So when I walked into the toilet, I saw things that I shouldn't have seen. To put it nicely, without getting graphic. So I think one time I just got fed up with it to the point where I was like, nah, fuck this. I'm walking to a hotel. I'm just gonna walk straight in and just use the toilet. And I kind of got told off afterward. The guy told me, if you do that, just ask us beforehand, which is fair enough. But it was really super run down, super dirty. Would not recommend, but it makes me so happy that I live in Melbourne. So now that we've got the most expensive hostel, the most dirtiest hostel, etc., what was the most cheapest hostel? It was in Bucharest. I stayed in one hostel for 8 days in Bucharest from October 2nd to October 10th, and I spent $110 in total for 8 nights, or $13.75. That is so cheap, but it was really bad. I guess you get what you pay for, but at the same time, I wouldn't just go for the most cheapest hostel because I feel like there's some things that are non-negotiables. But yeah, that's my accommodation all sorted out. So how much did I spend on accommodation in total? Staying in 18 hostels and 1 hotel for 107 nights. I spent $6,020.59. So that came down to $390 per week that I was spending on accommodation. So that's pretty good. That is so cheap actually. That's why you stay in hostels. You save money at the sacrifice of your own sanity and privacy. So in Spain, where I spent 66 nights, where I stayed there from July 1st to August 5th, and then back again from August 26th to September 26th, I spent $253 per week, or $2,386, compared to France, where I stayed there for 3 weeks from August 5th to August 26th. I spent $958 instead, for around $319.56. And for Romania, where I stayed from September 26 to October 17, I spent $240.76, or $84.13 a week. So obviously France, most expensive. All right, and now the second most expensive expense, transportation. So in transportation, I've got flights, and then which is 1, 2, like bus, trains, ride shares, things that I took to go from city to city. And then thirdly, transport when I'm in a city, like buses and trains. So let's start off with flights. Man, from Melbourne to Barcelona, it cost me $1,794 just one way. And it was 44 hours flight because I had 2 stopovers in Tokyo and Helsinki. And yes, that was the cheapest hostel, but I made a mistake. I didn't book a return flight because I just wanted to stay in Europe as much as possible until my money ran out. Bad idea. I'll tell you why shortly. And then my second most expensive flight was from Bucharest, which is where I was at the end of my trip, all the way to back home. So I spent $1,291. So that was in October. So a lot cheaper, but still really expensive. And I had a stopover in Rome and China, of all places. So yeah, that's $3,085.50 just to fly to Europe and back, both one-way tickets, which is a mistake because if you book return flights, it's so much more cheaper. And even if you don't know when you're coming back, just pay that little bit extra for flexible flights. It'll still be cheaper and you can change your date. But look, I learned it through the hard way, so it is what it is, eh? And then I took 3 more flights, so Mallorca to Paris. Bro, that sounds like a dream. Mallorca to Paris, oh my God, that was my favorite flight. And I remember it was full of French people, and when the plane landed in Paris, everyone just clapped. And then now I start doing that when the plane lands. And like sometimes I'm the only person clapping, but it is what it is. I'm being me. So it's cool. Marseille to Alicante and Santander to Bucharest were the 2 other flights. So I spent in total $3,414.40 for all of my flight. And then obviously for the second part of transportation, which was buses, trains, ride shares to get to different cities, I spent $284.50. So that was for 4 different methods of transport when I went from city to city. And then lastly, transport in a city. I'm smiling because you'll know why soon. For those whole entire trip, I only spent $242.84, which is super, super low. And I think kind of a big reason of that is I verified when I was at Nice. I was a backpacker, man. I was broke. I was on a budget, so I kind of needed to do what I needed to do, unfortunately. Not that it justifies it. So then I've got 2 more expenses. So how much I spent on food. These took up 21.55% of my total spending. And I spent $3,255.65 all up for food. So that's around $211 per week. So super cheap. And the reason why I was only spending $211 a week was half of the time I would just go to the local groceries, buy food, and then just cook in the shared kitchen in the hostel. So that was really nice. And then lastly, that brings me to my other expenses. I had a lot of other expenses. They didn't really amount to much. So things like laundry, going shopping, spending money at tourist attractions, getting a haircut. The biggest expense in my other section was the tourist attractions, which I spent most of it in Paris. So all up during those 3 months and 17 days, I went to 11 different tourist attractions and I spent in total $408.80. So not too bad. Wow, that is everything. What a beautiful time. I probably wouldn't go back again for a while. I love living in here. I feel like life's about making the most out of what you have, and you don't want to, spend so much time thinking about where you'd rather be to the point where you forget to enjoy where you are right now. So man, closing thoughts, book a round trip flexible flight and just know that you should never ever try and save money at the expense of safety and cleanliness, and hostels are a great way, are the best way to save money. So yeah, those are the 3 things. Guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know, and it was a pleasure saying all this. I loved it. Hope you loved it too. And yeah, bye guys.